Are you ready to leave 2024 behind with all its trauma and drama and exhausting negativity and just the general feeling that life is more than I can handle, or certainly more challenging than I can master? I mean, a lot of us are really fried energetically, and we want to have better lives. We are becoming quite intuitive because circumstances are asking that of us. We are becoming more aware because our world is unpredictable. But today what I want to share are some basic truths about ascending to the fifth dimension and really taking your power back so that next year is going to be as wonderful as this year might have been a bit challenging. So the first thing I want you to know is that you were brought here by divine appointment. This is no accident, and if you're here for the first time, welcome, welcome. I hope that you find something here that will really leave you feeling strengthened and encouraged. And if you're coming back, welcome back. I want to end this month. I want to explore in December and end this year with some very strong, empowering guidance from the wonderful spiritual teachers and guides and enlightened beings that are helping us elevate to the fifth dimension. So I'm going to share with you just a basic summary of some of the truths that we have to embody if we are going to live empowered, peaceful, and creative lives that allow us to create and manifest the experiences that really leave your life feeling joyful. Can you imagine? So the first truth that we need to embody is that we are spiritual beings. We are not ego or physical beings exclusively. We have bodies to operate with. We are energy and consciousness in the body, but we are not our physical body exclusively. We also have to embody and accept the truth that as a spiritual being, I'm not limited to the third dimension. Now, if you have any curiosity about that, just go on YouTube and Google near-death experiences, and you will have thousands and thousands of testimonials to how people had some sort of temporary experience of being considered dead or being medically dead, but consciousness lives on and became completely liberated. So if we can just accept that truth, even if it's a bit mind-boggling and you're a bit confused about what exactly that means, even just accepting that truth is going to give you a tremendous amount of power and freedom. Truth number 2 is that you have the power to create. Now that just for some is such a stretch of consciousness that it can even be irritating. But we don't, and we've heard several people, if you come to a channel like this, you're probably not a complete newbie. You might be having been studying this, but what creates is our consciousness. And our consciousness will mirror back to us in our experiences where we dwell, what we're dwelling on. There's a lot of people who said you cannot create what you want, you create what you are. I think that even a little bit more understandable way to say that is, you create what you dwell on. You create what you focus on forever and ever. Think about it. Have you ever had an experience where you were dwelling on something and then it happened? Now, for a lot of people, they're going to say, no, I dwell on winning the lottery all the time and it never happened. But what about if you think about something you didn't want to have happen and it happened? You're like, there you go. Because when you dwell with fear, you really are dwelling with a level of intensity that's quite powerful. I remember I learned this when I was 15. My older brother had a lot of guy friends, and one of them was this really nerdy guy named Danny who liked me a lot, and I didn't like him at all. One day he asked me to go out ice skating with him because that's what we did in the winter in Denver. We would go to this downtown ice skating rink at the time and hang out. And because I didn't want to go with him and didn't have the wherewithal and confidence to say no thank you, I lied and said, I can't go, I'm babysitting. He's like, okay, well, I'm disappointed. And then I proceeded to tell my best friends who I was going ice skating with, I lied to Danny. I hope I don't run into Danny. I hope I don't run into Danny. Put my ice skates on. No more one twirl around the ice. And who do I come nose to nose with? Of course, Danny. That's when I learned you get what you dwell on. And you can get it pretty darn fast, depending on, not only do you get what you dwell on, I learned a second truth, and this is another truth. Your words have power. Your words, whether you believe it or not, what you say is a outpouring of what you dwell on. So your words are magnets, big time. Now, words along with what you dwell on make for a very powerful combination. And the third thing that you want to accept as truth is what you can imagine without resistance will show up in your life. Maybe not the way you want, maybe not as fast as you want, but it will show up in your life. I learned this when I was 8 years old. There was a contest going on in Denver, again, where I grew up, that said Secret Santa, WGN, it was a local station, had a Secret Santa touring around Denver. And if you put Merry Christmas Secret Santa in your front window and he saw it as he was driving by, he would stop at your house and give you a present. So I believed it when I saw that on our little black and white television that we had the banana ears and the tin foil and all of that. Dates me, I know. I believed it. I thought, why would they say it on TV if it isn't going to happen? So I'm going to have Secret Santa come. And I wrote, Merry Christmas, Secret Santa, decorated it with sparkles and markers and sprinklers and little curly cues and whatever I could to get attention. And I remember when I did that, my older brother tormented me about how I was wasting my time and how stupid I was and who did I think I was, and Secret Santa, just the total opposite of me. And I ignored him. I absolutely ignored him. And I said, go away. Secret Santa's coming. He's going to see my sign. They said it on TV, so it doesn't matter what you say. That sign was up for 3 days. I remember I put it up on a Monday, came home from school on a Thursday. My mom met me at the door and said, you'll never guess who showed up today. I was like, who? What? Secret Santa came right after you left for school. What do you leave me? What do you leave me? She said, you'll never believe it, and walked me into the living room where he left a huge console color TV, which was, back in the day, a miracle. Very few people had that big color TVs, and there it was. So at 8 years old, I learned. You can imagine it without resistance. You can have it. I mean, that was way beyond my 8-year-old pay grade. And so, bam, I learned that and have applied that my entire life. So there's a couple of truths that are hard for your ego to accept because it just doesn't want the work. But another huge truth that's really important to accept, life is school. We are spiritual beings in these physical bodies, and earth is a classroom. Now, here's the thing. You can't flunk the class because whatever you meet in life are your lessons, and they will keep coming and coming and coming until you learn it. Once you learn it, it'll stop coming. So it's either a first lesson or perpetual summer school, but you will eventually learn because that's what you're signed up for. And if you don't learn, you'll just keep getting the same lesson. I learned this when I was a young woman. I learned this over time because think of us, we all have negative patterns that we keep experiencing. Just, those circumstances that you feel just haunt you and never leave you alone. It's like the story of my life. People say, well, that's the story of my life. I just keep attracting losers, or the story of my life is I never get a good job, or no one ever respects my creativity, or I just get nailed with things and responsibilities that I don't want. So think about, what is one story of your life that you're not enjoying? Because that is a lesson that you keep repeating and you haven't learned yet. So if you look at life as just a series of lessons in magic school, ask yourself, what's the lesson? If you don't know what the lesson is, allow yourself to have this experience. Set up what's called automatic writing. And what you do is you just sit in a nice quiet place, you get centered, you breathe, you calm your mind, and then you ask your higher self and your spirit guides, what's the lesson? Consider them your tutors. Now here's the caveat. You have to want to know. You have to want to learn the lesson. You have to want to know what the lesson is, and learn the lesson. I mean, how many of us have been in therapy forever, so we know the lesson? We are not confused about the problems we keep creating and running into in our lives. But that's not enough. Knowing what a problem is not enough. You have to want to know how to solve it. What is the solution? How do I learn that lesson? You have to want to learn it. So I was thinking about that before I shared this, and I was thinking one of my stories of my life was that I kept attracting people in my life, adults who were very spiritual, very creative, but not at all competent in any way at paying their bills, not at all competent in being responsible, being on time, had more drama and trauma than they ever should have. But for whatever reasons, well, I do know the reason, I found myself taking care of them. I found myself assuming responsibility for them, trying to help them pay their bills, trying to help them be adults. Way too much time like that. And eventually it just drained and angered me a lot. Then I sat down and thought, okay, enough of this game, enough of this failure in summer school. I need to really get clear about what the lesson is. When I sat down and I did automatic writing, I asked my higher self, what's the lesson? What am I missing here? And the lesson is, quit assuming responsibility for what isn't yours and let other people meet their own reflection so they can grow. You're interfering. You're enabling. You're codependent. Your sensitivity is actually trying to take care of your discomfort instead of their need to grow. Well, that was a revelation, even though it was floating around in my mind. I thought, maybe I am just taking care of myself, because being around these irresponsible deadbeats was very uncomfortable. But I like their personality. So if I just kind of assume responsibility for their bills and their needs, then maybe then I get their good company. But I found that the more I took on that wasn't mine, the more I didn't like them. So what did I do? I moved away and get a clean sweep and dumped everybody. Well, few people made the cut, but most of the deadbeats went out in one fell swoop. I had to learn a lesson. It was difficult. When I moved to France 10 years ago, I had no friends. But I also realized this was a reset button. I was going to learn to be with people who I loved, creatives, artists, intuitives, inventive people who would love to be resilient and have fun and manifest beautiful things. But I forgot something. I want them to be adults. I don't want to have a bunch of orphans. I don't want to have a bunch of can't take care of myself, wayward adults who don't want to. And when I learned that lesson, I stopped attracting people who drag me down. I mean, let's face it, I was broadcasting. If you're lost, I'll save you. If you're needy, I'll fix it. If you're creative but don't want to take care of yourself, bring it to me. I stopped broadcasting that. And I didn't get that anymore. Like that. It was amazing. That's how fast it works. So use your automatic writing and ask, what is my lesson? Now, here's what you do. Kind of got sidetracked there. Get clear, want to know the answer, and then put your paper to pen. Oh, got it backwards. Pen to paper. And write for at least 5 minutes without lifting your pen off the paper. And ask your higher self and your guides to write through you, through your heart self, and give you the answer. Do not lift your pen off the paper, and be curious. What is the answer? What is my lesson? And then when you're done writing, sit back, sit quietly, and then ask yourself, okay, maybe I'm not surprised. Maybe I knew this was my lesson all along, but am I interested in learning now? Do I want to get out of perpetual summer school? Do I want to stop having this happen to me over and over again? If you want to learn your lesson, part B is make a different choice. So that's another life lesson. There are no mistakes. There are only lessons. And if you didn't make the right choice, make a different choice. Be curious, creative, and experimental. I stopped myself from being interested in people that had drama. I just decided that if they're creative and they're wonderful, but their responsibilities were a disaster and they couldn't meet them, that I would keep them at an arm's distance. I can be friendly, I could have fun with them, but I wouldn't take them on as my mission. That changed pretty much overnight. And once I learned that lesson, decided I wanted to, the problem stopped. So in the comments, I want you to ask yourself, was there any epiphany where you actually got a life lesson and you actually learned it? You were willing to learn it and made different choices? It's so fast, it'll make your head spin how quickly that can improve. I had one client who, her problem, the story of my life is that I date men who are really abusive. That was her story, because they start nice, they're narcissists and abusive. It just seems no matter how charming they are on the outside, I attract the beast within really fast. And so I asked her, what was her lesson? Because there can't be that many a parade. I mean, she listed 9 or 10 in a row, and it's like, that's a lot. Okay, we might get one off bad egg in the bunch, but endless? What's your lesson? She did the automatic writing experience. You get centered, you get grounded, you close your eyes, you want to know, you write to your higher self, you write to your teachers and guides, your helpers, your tutors, and you say, okay, what's my lesson? And when she wrote down, she said, your lesson is that you're bored and afraid of real commitment. So you keep attracting people with whom there is no real commitment possible. And you are confusing drama with creativity. You know in your life, you know in your heart that these dramatic lives are temporarily exciting, but there's nothing to commit to. So your lesson is to commit to your own creativity and your own excitement and your own adventure, instead of vicariously through another. Now, that took her a few months to wrap her head around, but she got the answer in 10 minutes, automatic writing, clear as a bell, just as clear as if she had been in therapy for 10 years, if not more clear. Once she decided that she was going to accept the lesson, she signed up for an improv class. That was terrible. Just terrible, so controlling, so in my head, so slow, but I did show up and it was fun. And the best part is it wasn't the only terrible one. Most of us were terrible, so I didn't feel so self-conscious. And I stayed in it. So she stayed in that class. She took another improv class, and she said, I took a basic acting class, none of which I ever intended to take to the theater, but I intended to make my life more exciting. 2 years in, she had a whole new community of people, none of whom were in narcissistic drama, trauma, and predators, all of whom were enormously creative and wonderful, But she also realized I didn't really want to be in a relationship. I just wanted people to hang out with, and I was having the time of my life. I wasn't lonely. I didn't go home feeling sorry for myself. I had so many fun friends, and we were going to theaters and improvs, and we were having so many fun parties that my life was full. Now, that was a real revelation for her. She said, I realized I didn't even want the one-on-one partnership. I just wanted to have some good, fun, exciting company in a life with some fun things to do. So this automatic writing tool will really help you. But life is school. Problems in life are the lessons you're not learning. Recurring problems are summer school. Do you want to learn? And then here's another truth. And this is a big one. You can learn if you decide. A lot of people say, I'm too old, it's too late, because that's your ego doesn't want to be bothered. It can be a real lazy, I call your ego your barking dog, and the ego can be a really lazy mutt, doesn't want to learn anything. But like treating your dog, it takes some discipline and consistency and real intention. You want to learn, you will. I remember years ago, I wanted to learn how to do the trapeze. One was set up in my neighborhood when I lived in Chicago at the local kind of community center, but I wanted to learn. And I remember going to that first lesson. It was hard. First, you had to pull up your body, and I just had no arm strength, and you had to put this stuff on your hands, and just, I wouldn't let go. I was so controlling. I just ripped the skin off my hands and just kind of finally peeled off and dropped into the net. Walked home, and I thought, there is no way I'm committed to learning this. I'm not even going to tell myself. There is no way, because I don't want to do the work. Do not want to do the work of that. So check, eliminate. Look at your life. Where do you say you want something, but you really don't want to do the work? What I did instead is I learned to belly dance. Now, that for me worked. So if you're trying to create something that is asking of you something you don't want to do, look at yourself and ask yourself, okay, A, am I on the wrong track? Rather than feeling perpetually frustrated and fighting the truth of who I am, maybe I'm not there at that lesson. Maybe what I'm aspiring to really isn't what my soul wants. Maybe I don't want to do that for a reason. I mean, it was fun to have my one afternoon learning the trapeze, but more fun talking about it than the actual experience, because I really trashed myself. But it was really fun to learn to belly dance. That never trashed me. I showed up to that again and again and again. Now, granted, I wasn't performing, but in my own inner movie, I was a star. So there's a lot to pay attention to. That we are here, this is school, there are no mistakes, but there are lessons we signed up for, and they're not going away until we learn them. And learning about them is not enough. And you can use automatic writing to help you get clear about what the lesson is. However, that still won't solve the problem of actually deciding to learn the lesson. Then the next thing that you have to show up to is, if you're going to learn the lesson, you have to practice. You can't be an overnight piano player. You can't be an overnight, massive star actress, actor, or soccer player if you just do one twirl around the block. You've got to keep showing up. Which brings you to another truth. You will show up if it's coming from your heart. If it's truly a heart's desire, you'll show up. You really would I really wanted to learn the lesson of having good friends in my life and not deadbeats. Once I decided to learn, got really clear really fast. I learned. Took a minute to get some new friends that were more rewarding. But I learned fast what didn't work. And I was willing to change. That's the other thing. We can learn, we can change. We can change our consciousness. We can make new decisions. We're not robots. But your ego might fight you on that. So you have to be prepared. That don't tell yourself this is difficult. Just say it's different. And if I do something different for 40 days in a row, then it's not difficult anymore. It becomes part of who I am. Now, these are some of the things I want you to take into 2025, because 2024 maybe beat you up and robbed you of peace of mind because you didn't know any of this, or you knew a little, maybe not everything. So what I'd love to invite you to do is write in our comments, what of these lessons you've already understood? I'm a spiritual being. I get that. I accept that. Or these truths, rather. What of these truths am I accepting? That that life is school and I'm here to learn. Are you accepting that? And that it's not, like Shakespeare once said, nothing's good or bad, only thinking makes it so. And that's another truth. Our consciousness will determine for us whether something is good or bad. Now, people can really get worked up about that and say, what do you mean there's so many bad things in the world? And my teacher would say to me, for you, but someone else's consciousness can completely justify a behavior that you find repulsive. And they don't. They might find it completely entertaining. And that's a sad fact. But when you start to work with the truth that we're all spirit, you also understand the truth that there is no them. There's just us. And whatever I put out gets mirrored back real fast. And if what gets mirrored back is all the negativity that I'm putting out, well, it sets up a vicious cycle because you're going to keep recalling and calling in what you're putting out. I have a friend who is just, I love it, really cynical, very political, very commentary, speaks as if every word out of his mouth is God's truth, has an absolute opinion about everything, doesn't listen at all, drives me nuts. But I do like him. He has a good, witty sense of humor, and I don't take what he says to heart too much. But he can get really worked up and attract a lot of trouble in his life because of this. A lot of people argue with him. A lot of people get into fights with him. A lot of people tell him that he's a drag and they don't want to be around him. And he just says, see, the world's gone to hell. It's like, well, no, your internal world is inviting hell. What's going on inside your head is hell, and it's attracting hell on the outside. So these truths are really hard for our egos. Our egos would prefer to say, this is happening to me. I have no control. Don't ask me to change. The world sucks. It's all pretty negative. I don't want to be bothered. And that's where a lot of people live. But the reason the planet has become so incredibly stressful is because we can't continue as a collective and conscious, healthy race if there's too many of us that think like that. So the universe is really turning up the pressure for us to learn that we are spiritual beings and that we are connected and our thoughts create, and that we are not victims of and powerless victims of circumstance, and that if we collectively merge with others and give up our consciousness and just blindly follow, we're going to have lives of hell. Universe is teaching us to be master creators. It's a steep curriculum for some. It's the next step for others, and there's some of us already flying high in this wonderful reality, having a wonderful time. What I'd like to do is invite you to write down in the comments, what, if any of this, have you accepted as a truth, and how's that working out for you? And what is a stretch? What do you really struggle with? And then in that regard, do the automatic writing exercise I suggested of what is the lesson. Ask your higher self, ask your teachers, guides, your divine tutors. What is my lesson? Write it down. Ask yourself, am I willing to learn this? Because that's the big deciding factor. And then share with us what you discovered, because we're all moving in the same direction that will eventually leave this earth school. We'll probably come back if we haven't learned too many lessons and probably be faced with the same things, because that's how it works. But once we start learning, all this hell and mayhem starts to become settled down, far more peaceful, and the magic of abundance and connectivity and manifestation and peace of mind, and actually even a good night's sleep follow. So thanks for tuning in to this lesson. We are winding up December with a reflection on 2024 and how to become empowered as we march into 2025 to be the best, most empowering, successful, divinely peaceful year of our lives. My name is Sonia Choquette. If you like this, leave me a thumbs up. Leave comments because we learn from one another. And if you're new to my channel, please subscribe because we are on a big and wonderful adventure and I would very much want you to be part of it. All my love.